Emotional eating. This is not about food choices, not about willpower, not about discipline. This is about what happens when food becomes the place we go to feel okay, safe, or at least to feel something else. Listeners, welcome back to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm Sana, and today we are talking about something deeply personal and incredibly common, but still surrounded by shame and guilt. Now, many of us listeners, when we are stressed, bored, lonely, overwhelmed, or exhausted, we tell ourselves, I just need this to get through the day. And sometimes it works for a moment. But when the relief fades, and what follows is guilt, frustration, and the quiet thought, why do I keep doing this? My guest today knows this cycle intimately. She started binge eating at 16 after her first diet. She spent decades caught between restriction and loss of control. Most of her binges happened at night, alone in the kitchen, when everything was quiet and the feelings were loud. She believed something was wrong with her until she learned something no diet ever taught her, that her eating was not the problem, it was the coping strategy. So today she helps women to lift, women who look strong on the outside but feel out of control at night with food. So listeners, this conversation is not about fixing you. It is about understanding you. So let's begin our conversation with our beautiful, incredible guest, Nan Saysana. Nan, welcome to the Mindful Living, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Really honored.
Oh, thank you so much, Sana, for having me. I'm really honored to be here. What a privilege. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'm really thankful that you're bringing this up because more than the physical implications per se, that feeling of, shame, guilt, judgment after eating, then you realize that, why I'm doing this? Oh my goodness, what I've eaten, this is not good. And I mean, that cycle is such a vicious loop to be in. I mean, I am really thankful that you're bringing this up for all of us out here.
Mm. Yes, totally. And I love the way you describe it because this is exactly that what it is. People think that, yes, if we eat too much, if we eat a lot, if we eat more than we need, yes, it has physical repercussions, implications, as you said. Yes, we gain weight. Yes, we feel bloated. Yes, we have low energy. Yes, we can't fit in our clothes as we used to. But also, the immediate impact is this cocktail of emotions, the shame, the guilt, the frustration, this never ending cycle, this powerlessness that turns to be that turns into helplessness when you realize that the more you try to solve this and the deeper you get in, it turns into that helplessness, and that's definitely not the best place to be. But it's not often what we think about. And
Mm.
the shame, the guilt you're mentioning, yes, that's what, when we judge ourselves very harshly. It's as if we were all of a sudden the judge, telling ourselves we've been doing something very bad, we're a bad person, and we deserve a life sentence or something like that. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And another, because I have personally for a brief time actually have dealt with it, this madness, like urge to eat. Because at that time I was also on a very strict diet. And after, like, one of the immediate effect was this, binge eating. I mean, I don't exactly remember what the specific emotions triggering, but it was just like the urge in there. And it's not like, the one that we usually kind of it's this popularly portrayed on social media, or in the popular culture, that you just eat where sit down. If you're crying, there's a breakup or something, there's argument, you sit down with a bowl of ice cream and that's it. It's not like that. um I mean, uh, I mean, uh, sweets, and then I don't know, anything which I would feel like I would eat, then followed by, of course, the physical part, but more than that, this shame. And it was followed by this fear of not participating in any kind of family events or dinners or, outside lunches or brunches with friends. I mean, that was really, really a very hard time. And I'm really also looking forward, where you kind of give us a glimpse in there, because I know that requires a lot of courage. But I mean, I would love, Nan, for you to share like how exactly it was like for you.
Yes, absolutely. No, and I love that you pinpointed the exact moment when this was happening, when you were following a very, very strict diet, because that's physiological. If your body is starving, of course, it will make you obsess with food. And so the minute you lower your guard and you have access to food, of course, this is the only thing it will think about, because your body, your brain's job is to keep you safe, to make you survive. So, but we don't know that when we want to look slimmer, feel better in our clothes, etc. It makes sense that we would go on a diet, especially since it's such an thing that's permanent everywhere, especially around summer and things like that. So it makes sense that we would want to lose weight. We think that restricting calories is the way to go, but we don't realize that it's going to have an impact. And I like to use this analogy of the rubber band, sorry. It's as if we're pulling a rubber band very, very tight until all of a sudden it snaps. And that's very often what my clients experience. And I used to experience that myself. I would start the day telling myself, today, I'm going to be very, very good. This amount of calories. That was, of course, not sustainable. And I won't have sugar. I won't have flour. No carbs. I was being very, very clear, very determined, but too strict. I didn't realize I was not realistic, not kind at all to myself. And of course, I set myself up for failure so that by the end of the day, my body was screaming for food, but also my mind was feeling very restricted. So my body was feeling restricted in terms of real food, fuel food, but also I was so much spending the day telling myself, no, 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 you can't have this, even though I wanted it, that by the end of the day, I snapped totally. Um, and then I was also overeating, just like you described. And I also love how conscious you are that then came the
Mm.
fear of the food, the fear of the parties, but also the fear of losing control, probably. Because when we're in that cycle, restricting severely all day, but then completely losing it at night, losing control and eating more than we want to, then we train our brain to think, look, I can't trust myself around food. I try hard and yet I keep failing. So we start losing trust. And that's the worst repercussions, implication that I see. We start thinking that, look, I can't do this. And then it spreads in other areas of our life. If I can't even control myself around food, which so many people, we think, can do, then it means that I can't trust myself for anything. So I'm going to decide to do something, and then I very well know that I'm not going to follow through. This is a lie. This is not true. It's just that we learned a habit and we think that's the only way for us to go now. But this is a lie. This is not true. We can try change habits. We've changed so many habits since we were born. We can change that one too. Does that make sense?
It does, man. Now when I recollect, some of those memories, like I don't know how I dealt with, but then one thing that I absolutely realized that um, it was almost everything in my mind, like I was kind of punishing myself. I mean, there were certain moments where I would eat, hiding from everyone, um, and lots and lots of sweets, hiding from everyone, even if I have like consumed a bit of that in front of everyone,
Mm.
like if one or two servings, like everybody's eating, but then after that that trigger, that urge would come, and then hiding from everyone, I had to eat it. I mean, it was like a fight happening between my mind and my heart on my body. So yeah.
That this is exactly what happens for my client, and that used to be the same for me. Indeed, we eat in secret because we're surrounded by shame, but also there's this fight that you're describing it so well. I want to eat, but I won't. That goes on all day, and very often at night, it's I want to eat and I will, and so we go from one way to the other, and indeed, even if we have fueled our body with dinner with the family, etc., we have that urge to have more. So this is when we know that it has nothing to do actually, provided you fuel your body right with real food, we know that then it has nothing to do with food because food is meant to solve hunger and also to give us ourselves some form of pleasure. But when we know that we're feeling satisfied in terms of our stomach being full, then we know it's something else is going on. And so that's what I help my clients deal with. It's this changing this habit of using food as a coping mechanism. And we think that we are the only ones to have this problem, but it's not true. So, as you said, and I love that you said this, it's very common. It's more common than we think, but because it's so much surrounded by shame, we don't talk about it. But other people may not use food as a coping mechanism, but they may use their phones. They may scroll their phones. They may play video games. They may look at the news on TV. They may tidy their house. And just like, I don't know if you remember Monica in France, she
Yeah.
do that.
Oh my.
So it's just that return to food for soothing, for comfort, but also, as you mentioned, for punishing ourselves. Look, you've been bad. You ate more than you wanted. So let's do food and punish yourself because now you're going to feel extra bad. So we turn to food when other people turn to other things. It's just a coping mechanism, a habit we learned because we didn't want to feel the way we were feeling. The shame, the feeling bad, and we turn to food for comfort. And that's what we want to change.
Exactly. Exactly. On point. Right on point. And uh, I think this exactly explains that emotional eating, it's not a conscious choice most of the time.
Mm.
It is the nervous system trying to regulate itself. And I think this absolutely matters because many people, blame themselves for something that is happening faster than logic can intervene in there. A, a quick pause for you listening listeners. If this conversation is already giving you language for what you feel inside, or if you feel it's helping you see your patterns with a little less shame, hit follow. All right, back to it.
Yes. So many people tell me, but it happens automatically. It's just this automatic loop. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was feeling. And it makes sense because just like anything we've learned, we've practiced it so much that it becomes automatic and conscious. When I brush my teeth, I don't know about you, but I don't think on purpose about what I'm doing, what tooth in particular I'm brushing, etc. It's the same for when we drive, when we walk, we don't consciously think, oh, I'm going to put my foot this way. Because otherwise the brain would be overwhelmed by everything we have to think about. And it's the very same thing with that. When we started, we probably turned to food by thinking, I remember for me, it was peanuts. Um, and I remember that we used to eat peanuts with my family for what we call the apéritif in France. And the apéritif is kind of little meal that we have before the official meal, before we start with the starter. It's just something very friendly. You invite other people, and there's a kind of a small buffet where you have peanuts, but also you could have chips, you could have olives, things like that, finger foods. And so I love that moment because it was fun, it was friendly, and that's what I was looking for when I was going to for the peanuts when I started emotional eating. But it was not conscious. I thought, oh, I like peanuts. Like so many people think, well, I like chips, I like pizza, I like chocolate.
Yeah.
And we do that and we think, oh yeah, I feel a little bit better. I was not realizing that actually I was feeling stressed because of some event that was going to happen, some exam. some test or some conversation I had or I was about to have. And I was turning to food to kind of soothe myself, to numb myself. I read in a book something that really stuck with me, which is um, when you have a glass and the glass is empty and you put your finger on the rim of the glass, there's a particular sound.
Yes.
But when the glass is full, the sound is more muffled. And it's exactly the same with our stomach. When the stomach is full, we don't feel the emotions that we tend to feel otherwise the same way. So I was doing that, filling myself with peanuts because I didn't want to feel the stress or the discomfort. That could have been mild or high, but that was
Mm,
my current experience. So it was a way of soothing myself, of numbing my emotions.
mm. Exactly, exactly. And you mentioned about peanuts, and one of my, you know, struggles in the later part of adulting or growing was I'm a huge fan of Snickers.
Mm.
Yeah, after dinner, it was like compulsory. I have to have 2 bars of Snickers. Uh, then I thought, okay, it's now getting too much. So then I started to have, like a bit of peanut butter after dinner every day, just to have kind of that, have that taste, that feeling of that yes, I'm having peanut in the Snickers or having chocolate or something like that.
Totally. No, I totally get where you're at. I used to be a fan of Snickers too, and Mars bars and yeah, well, comfort food, chocolate bars, um, and actually, I used to do the same as you did, tweaking, substituting one food for the other. Instead of the Snickers, I'm going to have the peanut butter. But actually, the problem is not food. Food, as you said, is the solution in the moment. We're feeling a certain way. We don't want to feel this way, or we're feeling good and we want to keep the good good feeling going, and we turn to food because we also associate food with celebration, partying, feeling good. And but the actual problem, if we want to call it this way, is the feeling we're experiencing before we turn to the food. But I don't
Mm,
know about you, but I grew up in France, I live in France, and in my family we didn't talk about emotions. We actually, I think the underlying message that was never explicitly said, but was, well, if you don't have any emotions, that's even better than not expressing your emotions. So we were pretending that everything was fine, and we were supposed to look fine, to be fine, um, even when things were not fine at all in our emotional life. So that's something that I had to learn, to actually name the emotion. Am I feeling good or bad? Am I feeling happy or actually sad? And the deeper I went, the more vocabulary I built with this. And it's also not so important to name the emotion, to have the right label. What's more important, I now realize, is to actually feel the emotion in my body, not in my brain, not having a label in my brain, but just to, okay, I'm feeling bad, and here's where it is in my body. It's in my chest, and it feels like a little cyclone. That's what I'm experiencing. And just to sit with this and to observe, to be curious about this thing happening in my body, which is an emotion, very normal, very human. If we didn't have emotions, we would actually not be human, and that would be a problem.
yeah, exactly. That is so true. That is so true. And you openly talk about, like uh, the stopping thing that, and the cost of it. Like, if the relief that we get from, binging or emotional eating, it is real, temporary. How do we help people stop seeing emotional eating as the enemy and, start seeing it as information? Like, you expressed, like I shared, but I think many people, many listeners, this might be the first time that, they are considering that emotional eating, it's not a character flaw. It is a learned response. So how exactly, what information is our body trying to give in there?
Right. Yes. So, yes, stop seeing emotional eating as the enemy is the first step indeed. And it's so important because we're so used to being furious at ourselves, as you said, the shame, the guilt. The problem is that when we're feeling ashamed, guilty, frustrated, so mad at ourselves for yet again going to the Nutella jar or whatever, or the ice cream, um, the problem is that when we fueling this cycle with this negative emotion, this self judgment, this we're bullying ourselves. And when we're bullying ourselves, when we're judging ourselves so harshly, the problem is that it stops us from really understanding what's happening. So being furious sounds so righteous for so many people. Lots of my clients tell me, but if I don't get mad at myself, then I never change. But it's not true, actually. Being mad at ourselves keeps us stuck because, first of all, it stops us from being curious and really understanding. And then it drives us directly back to the ice cream, the pizza, the chips, whatever it is, because we keep looking for comfort from this self bullying part, this criticizing part of us that's judging ourselves so harshly. So we think we doing using the stick is the right method because it worked for so long, except that it worked out of fear. So as you said, it's only temporary, just like overeating when we're feeling bad only works for a split second. We feel soothed, but only for a split second. And then we beat ourselves up. Same thing with beating ourselves up. We think it's going to help us correct our ways. And then we think, okay, I'll be good tomorrow. I'll have a plan and I'll be good. Except that we're not really understanding why we did that in the first place. So being furious backfires. And you probably notice it in other areas of your life when you're not being kind or with other people. When you're cruel to other people, it doesn't help long run. So what I really want my clients to do, what I really help people to do is get curious, really understanding. But it means stopping indeed, at least for a split second, judging themselves so harshly. So that then, instead of being the judge sentencing you to life prison, we want to be the detective. I love watching detective shows. We want to understand and we want to be curious, thinking, oh, I wonder what happened there. What was going on for me? That it makes sense that I turn to food to soothe myself, to make myself feel better. This, using the magnifying glass, this is going to help you really understand, really connect with yourself instead of being disconnected. And then you will notice patterns. Oh, wait, each time I had this conversation with that person, I feel this way. And then I turn to the Snickers bar or things like that. So, okay, what else could I do to delay that reaction or to change it altogether? What's available for me? What options feel doable and kind to me? Things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That I want to bring in another aspect here. And I think somewhere down the line, this is also a kind of related in terms of, how the feelings, they shape the response here. Like especially around bulimia. Now, I for the first time in my life, I got introduced to bulimia when my father shared, one of his colleague, he what he does is he eats a lot and then yeah he'll go and he'll vomit it out. And at that time my own response was it's weird, it's it's kind of a I laughed kind of as a response to it, because that was for the first time I'm hearing about it and that was funny. But then, as I spent more years on this planet Earth, and I kind of uh, came across so many different, uh, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of shame in even talking about emotional eating or bulimia. Let it, I mean, let alone be the awareness and the solutions, the channels out there. So for someone, Nan, who emotionally eats and also experiences bulimia, um, What are the most common triggers that, that lead from eating to purging? And what do those moments tend to feel like?
Mhm. Right. Yes. So my clients are not bulimic, but I understand what you're saying. What they do is they overeat at night, but they don't compensate because what when we purge, when we vomit, it's to compensate, to kind of negate, I guess, to erase, delete the behavior before. Um, and we know that there could be some compensation, some ways to compensate. So some people vomit, just like your dad's colleague was mentioning. Some people work out a lot. You know,
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
spend. I heard of people spending all day in the gym to compensate, but of course that's not realistic. And again, just like vomiting, it's not real self care because, of course, we damage our body even more if we want. And I'm not saying that to shame anyone because at the moment we don't know what to do. So it makes sense that we would go to a behavior that we think is going to help. So compensating by working out extremely, having that kind of behavior, vomiting, that's what we do. That's what some people do. And what I like about what you said just now is that you said feelings shape the response. You mentioned bulimia, but I want to point out that it's always what we do. It's always the cycle. Every human I've met, every client I've coached for the past 6+ years has the exact same patterns. And it's basically that there are things happening out there in the world. This is what I call circumstances. Things that you didn't decide, things that are not within your control right now. We could talk about the weather, for instance. That's definitely not within anyone's power. But then what's within our power is what we think about it and what we think about the way we interpret the weather, whether it's raining or sunny, that's going to make us feel a certain way. It's going to make us, very simply put, feel good or bad. And the way we feel, as you said, shapes the way we act or respond or behavior. And so if we feel a certain way, we're going to behave a certain way. And that's going to have an impact in our life. And that pattern, those 5 categories, work all the time. So there's always a circumstance, the world going on around us, and then there's what we think about it. That's going to make us feel a certain way. That's going to make us behave a certain way. That's going to have an impact in our life. And what I want to point out and really insist on is that we have power as to what we think. As we mentioned earlier on, some thoughts are automatic because we've practiced them a lot, because we've seen others um, think that thought, say it to us, so it became true to us. But still, the way we interpret reality is not a truth, a universal truth. It's still one interpretation, one opinion, one option. And that's what I help my clients change if they want to. I help them change their mindset, the way they see things, in a way that then is going to help them more in terms of how they feel, but also in terms of how they behave. So they want to change a behavior like overeating at night or whenever, or compensating for overeating a certain way. I'm going to help them change the feeling that leads them to that behavior by changing the way they see something in the world, the way they see themselves, for instance, or the way they see their bodies, or the way they see their food habits. Is that does that make sense?
Yes, 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 absolutely not. Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, how are there any ways, like, using which someone can tell the difference between using food occasionally for comfort and being stuck in a pattern that is quietly harming them? Like, any symptoms, any signs, any patterns?
Hmm. Yes. Oh, that's such a good point. So what I use with my clients is what I call the diff, and I didn't invent it. I got it from Ronnie Stevens, who used to have a podcast called Inside Out Weight Loss. She's got a book called Fulfilled, I think. And she uses this concept, the DIF, and that stands for duration, intensity, frequency. And so basically, we can, roughly speaking, say, okay, how often do I overeat? That would be the frequency. How intensely do I overeat? So it could be, well, you mentioned Snickers bars, and that used to be my go to food too. How many Snickers bars do I eat? And how fast do I eat them? Is it one Snicker bar per minute, or is it one Snicker bar per day? What is it like? And also the duration is how long do my overeating episode last? And I'm not a psychotherapist. I can help people who overeat on a regular basis, but of course, therapists dealing who specialize in binge eating disorders, they can help people who do that consistently all the time when it's really a pattern that's ingrained for them. So that's what I use, the diff with my clients. At the beginning of us working together, we establish this diff. How long does it last when they overeat? How intense it is? How frequent it is? And we also establish, and that's much more fun, what it would be like for them 6 months from now. And then I lead them from one point to the other one, just as if I was a guide, guiding them from one place to the other one. And that's the fun part.
No, I think that's a very good and easy way to actually look at it, because sometimes even the solutions become so hard that we lose a complete sense of what exactly we are doing, and why this is happening. Like, we again once again get into that loop. So I think it's a very easy and like a doable way to look at it. The diff here, the duration, intensity, and the frequency. And before we wrap up, Nan, I mean, you tried almost every diet imaginable. Um, in fact, I didn't try all the diets, but then some of the obsessions, my obsessions were: number one, to count the calories I'm eating every day. Like, I literally used to note them down in a notebook, um add them, and if even 100 calories more from tomorrow, I have to cut down 200 calories, kind of a, or I have to work out more. Then reading calories on every packet of food. um then having fear from certain foods.
Mm.
Um, then you tried low calorie, low carb, vegan, raw, Mediterranean. Mediterranean being one of my favorite diets here, but then none of them had solved the binge eating. So why do diets fail so consistently for emotional eaters?
Mm, yes, because I think we're not addressing the real issue. If we're an emotional eater, it's because we turn to food to soothe our emotions, to fix our emotions. And so, yes, indeed, we can be super knowledgeable as to the amount of calories, as to what fuels our body or the human body best. We can have, superfoods into our diet. But if we don't solve why we turn to food when we're actually full and fueled, then we're never going to get out of that cycle. So, yeah, I think it's always a good idea to improve the way you eat in terms of quality of food and the quantity of food, getting more educated as to how the human body functions better. That's
Mm.
beautiful. That's self care. That's getting to know yourself better and so on. That's a very good thing. That's why nutritionists and dietitians are doing such a good job. But if you don't address um, why you turn to food when you actually fed your body, then it's not going to help. Knowing the amount of calories in the chocolate bar is not going to help. So it's really asking yourself that question, either in the moment if you can, but very often, especially in the beginning, it's hard to do. But after the facts, okay, I had this amount of food. I ate the peanut butter by the spoonful. Okay, why? What was going on just before I did that? What was going on in terms of circumstances? What was the situation? What was on my mind? What was I thinking about it? What was I feeling about it? And what did I do with that feeling? Did I actually spend a little time? Okay, I'm feeling sad, and here's what it looks like. And it's not so big a deal. Or instead, which is so common, so normal, ooh, this feels uncomfortable. I don't want this. I want it to go away. How do I make it go away? I don't know. Let's turn to the food because that always calms me down a little bit. So this is, I think, after the fact, it's okay because in the moment it may be hard, but after the fact, having that little conversation with ourselves that can really help.
Yep. Yeah. Better in a dialogue. And I think this is a very important, also I personally feel that, it's kind of a responsibility, because it not only is on the individual or the person themselves, but as let's say a loved one, a friend, a family member, how can we help a person who in their world is kind of challenging with emotional eating, and they may not be able to fully share their audios, what moments they're going through, what inner conflicts they're going through. How can we help them?
Yes, and I understand. Yes, that's not easy. That's not easy. Um, and I like that you use the word responsibility. And I like to distinguish. Some of my clients don't distinguish the two, but I think it's important to distinguish responsibility from guilt because
Mm.
guilt feels heavy. So, oh, it's my fault. I did something wrong. Whereas responsible is, yes, I'm doing this because I'm feeling this, because I'm thinking this, but it doesn't mean something bad about me or anything bad. So I think that's an important distinction that we don't always get. And how to help other people? Yes, that's a very good question. I think there are different ways we can help. First, by leading by example, and perhaps by saying simply, okay, I overate, I ate one chocolate square more or much more than I wanted. I wonder why I did that. Or maybe I was thinking and feeling this way. And so it made sense in the moment to do this. And if we can show, what was going on for us in a shameless way, in a factual way, in a compassionate, empathetic way, just like, oh, that's what we do as human beings. I think that can help the other person think the same way about themselves and their behavior. That's one option. Another one could be when you notice that they're feeling down, they're feeling not great about themselves. And if they share that actually they're feeling that way, one thing that can help them could be to validate their feelings. So,
Yeah.
let me explain what I mean by that is that very often what I used to do, and I'm trying to change the way I behave when it's not with my clients, but with people like my family, friends, etc. When they tell me, "Oh, I'm feeling this way," my first instinct, my first impulse is to try and solve it for them. "Oh, you should do this. Oh, you should think this way." But it it often doesn't blend very well because that's not actually what they want. All they want, and I'm the same. I want the same. When I'm expressing something that's bothering me, I want to feel heard. I want to feel understood. So that's what now I'm trying to do with my friends and family members. Just, oh, you're experiencing this. You're feeling frustrated. I get it. It must be hard. It must be challenging. I understand what you're going through. And that's it. And I try to stop there without offering, what I think they absolutely should do which I have
Right.
no trouble doing with my clients, but I didn't connect the dots with my family and friends. So I think that, yes, like mirroring what they're going through, what they're experiencing, what they're saying can actually help them. Just like if they were, shaking and shaken in a snow globe, just say, oh, I get what you're experiencing. Just that can help them settle. And maybe that can help them change their behavior too by having this inner conversation too, which is, oh, yes, I'm experiencing that.
That is so true. That is so right, actually. So right now. Superb. And before we wrap up this conversation, if listeners they would further like to connect with you and share their thoughts, their experiences, their feelings, their opinions about this conversation with you, what would be the easiest way to reach out?
Right. So the easiest way to reach out to me is to send me an email. I'm happy to get emails and to answer them. My email address is nscoaching@outlook.fr. But also the best place to find me is on my website. So it's called Milo, Milo, bingefix.com, milobingefix.com. And that's where they'll see the women I help, how I work, what life looks like when you stop overeating, binge eating. And if you like this conversation, and then you're very welcome to come to my masterclass that I think you could love too. It's called One Bite Doesn't Have to Turn into the Whole Bag, and How to Go to Bed Without Regret. And you can sign up at milobingefix.com/masterclass.
Super, super. Listeners, what I'm going to do there is have all the links and details in the show notes. So just refer to them attached along with this episode on whichever platform you listen to your podcast to. And I think this is such an important and crucial conversation which we did today with Nan today on emotional eating, because it's not about weakness. It is about survival. Food was there when stress was too much, when loneliness was heavy, or when feelings felt unsafe. And for many people listening, food did not fail them, listeners. Food did not fail you. It helped you cope when you had no other tools. But then growth begins when coping becomes conscious. So if you are listening and thinking, this sounds like me, I want you to hear this clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. You were never taught how to sit with feelings, how to understand urges, or how to trust yourself around food. Those are skills, and skills can be absolutely learned. And Nam, thank you so much. I really appreciate your honesty, your sharing your journey with all of us, and for reminding us that healing does not come from control but from understanding.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I want everyone to know that there's a solution to emotional eating. Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nan. And to you listening, be gentle with yourself today, because awareness is not weakness, it is the first step toward freedom. Until next time, this has been The Mindful Living. I'm your host, Sana, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you and take care.